Sure, abuti honestly.
Good evening to you, the colleagues and the general, as well as the legal team. No, General, I just want us to go back to your sworn-in statement. And I would like to bring your attention to paragraph 20 of your own statement to us, especially the paragraph that starts by saying, "It appeared to me from the discussion with Mr. Nkabinde that there may have been a deliberate attempt to have the directive sent while the National Commissioner was away and out of office, and an acting National Commissioner was in place." Now, why do you think that will matter? And I'm asking this question because in your own knowledge, were the people involved that you are alleging were involved in this, including the minister, aware of who was going to be an acting National Commissioner, as the consequence of which they were going to plan the issuing of the directive in such a manner that it will receive the attention of their preferred acting National Commissioner?
When the National Commissioner goes on leave, he prepares a submission to the minister that so-and-so is going to be acting, as the minister will have approved the National Commissioner not to be in the office, whether he's on leave or he's traveling. So the minister will have been away. And we as a police management then get a communication. Once that approval is done, the communication is circulated to everyone to know the National Commissioner is going to be out of the office, so-and-so is the acting National Commissioner. So that communication goes out there. Only on this paragraph you're referring to, I'm saying this because the Minister of Police writes a letter that has got far-reaching consequences in the management and the running of the organization. You are disestablishing a team. You are suspending the filling of vacancies in a critical environment of the police without giving reasons at all. You do this thing exactly when the National Commissioner is gone on leave. Literally 2 days after you were with the National Commissioner, 2 working days. He was with the National Commissioner on a Saturday, Sunday, maybe he was in church. I don't know where he was on Sunday. Monday, Tuesday is relaxing at home. Wednesday is a holiday. And that Tuesday, the letter is dispatched to the office of the National Commissioner. And it comes out into the meet on the Thursday. So you then ask yourself a question, but couldn't the minister wait until he has a one-on-one with the National Commission on this? Shouldn't he have given more reasons why he's suspending the vacancies of filling of vacancies of crime intelligence? Shouldn't he have waited until he gets a briefing about the work of the political task team? But because those things are not done, you secure a meeting with the minister, and the meeting doesn't happen. And as the time progresses, the team is deprived of an opportunity to be rewarded awards late in the same month of January. And you ask questions, you're not getting answers. And you're left with members that are demoralized. You're left with nothing else but to conclude that the intention then was to make sure that thing is executed while the National Commissioner is not in the office. Fortunately, the acting person at the time did not act on it.
But did you approach the acting person to say,
no, but
something like this has come out and it has devastating consequences for the institution?
I did not talk to her because it's addressed to the National Commission, and I know the acting has got no business with the PKTT, but the National Commission himself. That's why I engaged the National Commission. I did not engage in the acting. And I must say again, honorable chair and members, this is part of what we talk about when I say reforms within the police, as I talked about this acting, because the deputy national commissioners get to be receiving this privilege of being elevated above the provincial commissioners, creates a problem. That's why today SBIA can claim to be the boss of investigation, because if he is a deputy, and they ignore what the Constitution is saying about the powers of provincial commissioners. Yeah. And the same when the National Commissioner goes out of the office, then appoints the deputy. to be the boss of the organization national?
You know, General, I was asking that question because somewhere in your reply to questions here, you made reference to the fact that, if I quote you accurately, that in your own understanding, and you'll indicate if there's a distortion on what I'm saying, an acting national commissioner, by practice and law, assumes the full responsibilities of the commissioner who is away for whatever reasons. If you are nodding yes to that understanding, therefore the question arises, sure, the letter is addressed to somebody who's on leave, but as a functional of the department, you are aware that in his absence, somebody is acting. What militated against you taking a decision that, my colleague, you are acting here. I know you are the one who's acting. And I understand that the letter is not addressed to you, it's addressed to the National Commissioner, but I don't think he would be in the position to act on the directive because he's away. What are you doing about it? What's your take on it?
I was least interested about the implementation of the letter. I was more interested in, my mind was on the why part. That's why I had to ask a person that I believe should have been consulted prior to that letter, which is a person who has a knowledge about the subject we're talking about. The implementation of it is not an issue. I would like to believe if the acting national commission at that time implemented this letter immediately on the day, it would have been closed from the day. And of course, whatever consequences part of the investigation was going to follow was going to include that national commission as well, because she's a trained policewoman. She would have known better not to implement that letter as is. But I'm glad she didn't. So I was not bothered about implementation. I was bothered about getting an answer as to why. Why such a decision? And then the person that can answer that question, it's a person who's an accounting officer of the organization that has got the vested knowledge about the work of this team, not the acting. That was my interest, not the implementation of it.
So, General, you have expressed a very serious concern about the safety of the counterintelligence team that is deployed in Gauteng. Those members that you were mentioning have been doing a very good work, and you were worried about their safety and that of their own families. What do you think should SAPS do in order to mitigate any security risk to their lives?
Well, I don't know much about their families, where do they live and all that. I don't have the details of that, but I'm comfortable knowing that the members are not working alone. They've got protection teams that are around them all the time, 24/7, whether they're at work or they're not at work. I am told that the organization is keeping them at a safer place where they are accommodated. And that's only if the rogue animals within crime intelligence have not disclosed those accommodation places to the public again, where the members have been kept safe. So I'm quite happy with the security arrangement around the members themselves, but I don't know much about their family members. And so in the long run, their safety will only remain intact once or can be guaranteed once the cases that their investigations are finalized, and it's still a long process. And then we are safe that the perpetrators, all of them, are behind bars. And those enablers within the organization, because why I talk about the safety, members are investigating, they're busy with the docket, they get invited at the office of Jarvis Beer by the general in that office who says, there's an envelope for you. Don't oppose cases, bails. And they ignore that. The members get invited into a party into a house. Well, not all of them, one of them. He gets in there and he finds these criminals he's investigating, hosting the party here, and he's told, join the club. This is a life you're going to enjoy when you're with us. And he sees senior managers in the police in Gauteng, in this meeting, in this gathering. And the member walks out shivering and saying, but if these people can socialize with my bosses like this, I don't think I can even trust my bosses. That's why people will ask us the question as to why is the police management of Gauteng not part of this we're talking about? Part of it is that they have been friends with wrong people, or they find themselves attending wrong parties. And they were seen by this investigation team in there, and there was doubt. Not to say they're part of it, they've never been implicated on anything, but the sheer close vicinity with the people that are under investigation makes the members to start questioning on their standing in terms of this. That's why they opt not to engage with them and they went elsewhere, that crime intelligence. So it's all that scenarios that makes me say these members are well known. They are known by their commanders. They are known by some of these criminals that they're investigating. And so the safety around them and their families supposed to be prioritized. I do hope that the measures that has been put in place will assure their safety. But if not, we might really have a problem as a country.
Okay. Now, on the letter of the 31st by the Minister of Police, one of your major concerns about the process through which the letter was drafted, as you were briefed by Mr. Nkabinde, there is a point that you kept on making here yesterday and today about the letter being doing what we are calling to and fro. So the letter was moving from one end to another. And you seem to suggest that that was happening because the person who was dictating the drafting of the letter was somebody that was driven by some kind of malice or malicious. Would you not consider it normal that there may be circumstances where a principal like yourself will dictate the preparation of a letter that you'll sign later to your PA or to your secretary or to somebody who works with you in the office? I mean, we are sitting with you here. It may very well be that there's a letter that you need to write, but you know what has to be on the letter, and you tell somebody in your office for them to, you dictate how they must prepare the letter, which may result in the letter doing what you are saying is to and fro, because it has to meet the standard that we have set out to the draft. Don't you think that under normal circumstances, that can happen?
It's possible. That can happen. I don't dispute that. On the 28th, I'm with the minister in the funeral, Escalin. And the minister says, goodbye, initial commissioner, I'm running around, I need to relax, it's holiday time, enjoy your New Year's Eve. Mkwanazi, I'm here in the province, I'm going to enjoy my time here with the family. If there's anything that is urgent, I will touch base with you, otherwise, all have a good news day. Saturday afternoon, National Commissioner gets on the jet, he flies out to Pretoria, I get in my car, I drive down to Durban. Sunday, it's a public holiday. The Monday, it's a working day. The minister said to me he's sitting at home, so he's not working. Ordinarily, those that are working in offices, the culture in the police is that duty permits without compromising the work of the police. But those working in offices on days such as the New Year's Eve, the day before the Easter weekend, the days where we know that there's a lot of traveling that are happening, we tend to release the members, because the members that work in offices, usually they don't work on weekends, they don't work on public holidays, other than operational members. And therefore they use public transport, they use their own cars to go home and wherever they go, unlike operational members who will normally have vehicles picking them up when they're working. So we allow these members to leave early. Usually it's a common trend. At 10 o'clock in the morning, duty permits, you can release the members to go home early so they can do shopping before the rush hour, then they can be home safe. We always adopt that culture in the police as one of our wellness that we do for our employees. So the 31st of December is one of those days. They will expect by midday that the office is empty, except the police station. But administration offices, you're going to find them empty, people are gone. And that time, the minister's office is busy drafting letters of this nature. And that afternoon, after 4 in the afternoon, I said people leave early. These letters dispatched after 4 in the afternoon. And the office of the National Commission is told to acknowledge that. So you can see the pattern, the behavior, beside what Ngabinde tells me, but the track record of when this letter was delivered and so forth, it tells you something is not right. The minister, you can't have this agency while we are supposed to be sitting at home and relaxing, but you're busy with such a letter. And we are directing this thing to the senior manager of the organization, the accounting office, the person you were with 2 days back, and you never said a word about it. What is the motive behind? So it's based on that where I conclude that the minister is not an author.
Now, General, you've made several references to Mr. Paul O'Sullivan, his conduct and his involvement, and as well as Mr. Sbia, Lieutenant General Sbia, I hope I'm saying it right. Now, in your own view, is there a relationship the two gentlemen have referred to just now? Is it a relationship in your own assessment of people who are merely involved in the business of self-enrichment and exercising influence over authority in the country, or their conduct runs far beyond that, which may mean intended to lead to the destruction of the democratic state? It's just a pure criminality of people who like to control and they have money, or this is more than that. And I'm going to tell you why I'm saying that. I come from the school of thought that says, after 1994 in this country, well, from 1994, there are people who did not want South Africa to be a democratic country. And from where I come from, we believe those people still exist. They may be employing different means and methods today to achieve the same objective that they were defeated against in 1994, when we successfully became a democratic state. So when people are engaged in the activities that we're explaining here, you may not subscribe to the school of thought I spoke about, but now that I explained it, would you see their conduct as merely criminals who are engaged in a self-enrichment, or criminals who are engaged in a project for a state destruction?
When based on the evidence that we collected, I remember when we were investigating what is before us, what we have deducted from this approach and this relationship is that it was an opportunistic relationship that was formed, pushed by the Deputy National Commissioner to be close to the minister. The objective was to get the minister to endorse him, to allow him to do what he wants to do in the organization. That's for him to fulfill the criminal activities that we are investigating. The minister's buy-in into this relationship is influenced by the political interest in his personal capacity as a politician for future position that he wants to occupy. He always saw himself as a leader of his own political party, and subsequent to that as a leader of South Africa in future. So this police who has his own interest then make use of a political comrade of the minister to influence the minister to sell this support, pledge the support to the minister. So then the minister starts believing that because it comes from a comrade, that it is really going to propel him to where he wants to go. Not knowing, on hindsight, that what is an intention of this police officer that is coming with his help. I say this because when the minister received the briefing, which is what similar political task team decision will have done, he received an information about the poor performance of a health risk contractor in the police. He does not write a letter and say, shut down the contract. He invites management to come and give him a presentation. He says, this thing is frustrated. We have to recruit police. We have to send so many kids at the college. What is happening with this contract? There are complaints that are coming in, people that need to be retired, medical issues that they have, but there's no performance from this contractor. What's the story? Remember, it's a contract that was set up before his arrival. He doesn't have any relationship with this contract. The owner of this contract, he doesn't know. So he's a minister at the time. He brings the management, and the management is in a meeting with him, and he takes decisive action there that says, this is affecting the organization, National Commissioner. You need to launch an investigation against this contract, and you cancel it. That's a directive he issues there. He doesn't write it. He speaks in a meeting as an executive authority, which is a person who's concerned about the risk that this contract is bringing to the organization. So he pronounced on such. The how part is the National Commission must do it. But he says you can't have a contract that doesn't perform and you continue keeping it. Because we need to recruit next year. We don't have luxury of time. He walks out of that meeting. What followed thereafter? When the contract is cancelled, the communication from the owner of the contract, before it's cancelled, the owner of the contract sends a communication to the comrade of the minister and say, your comrade that I'm financing has pronounced the National Commission, has given instruction to the National Commission to cancel my contract. Obviously, the comrade realized that, oh, yes, the minister has caused a problem. He then went and he consoled this man and said, no, I'm going to talk to the minister. It cannot happen like that. He said he's going to try and talk to the minister about it. But it was too late because an investigation has been launched. And the report comes out. National Commission is going to come here tomorrow. We must ask him this question. After receiving a report, did he try to reach out to the minister to present the report before cancelling the contract? If so, did he meet with the minister? Did the minister listen to the outcome of the report? Or the minister dodged him, he never wanted to meet with him? Because that's exactly what happened. The National Commission couldn't meet the minister. Eventually, he had to take a decision that the report is before me, so I'm terminating. He terminated. So you could see that minister's interest was political career. There's a comrade who's supposed to help him to go there. Well, he says he's a comrade, Mr. Brown Mohodzi. I'm not saying he is a comrade, but that's what he says. His comrade will help him to propel him there. This side, you have a police commissioner that comes with some support to enable this thing to get to where it's supposed to go. So the conversion or the merging of these two interests that are not similar, that's what brought us here today. So that's why I'm saying that it cannot be a criminal intent on both sides. It's a criminal intent on one side and the political interest on the other. But the other depended on this one to get somewhere. So then he allowed this thing to happen, which has got this outcome of criminality at the end. I sit here before this parliament and I said it before the South Africans. I have not accused the Minister of Police of crime specific in as far as this what is alleged against Gerald Spear. But his crime, if any, it's about the decision to shut down the team that pleases the criminal syndicate. So he participated in that front. But I don't see, I never, from my investigation, we don't pick up the minister's intention on this thing right at the onset. He was new in the department, he got captured quickly by the bad people. And unfortunately, didn't want to listen to us.
So your own information, General, is that after the minister issued that instruction at the meeting, without defining the details in terms of how the commissioner must act, the commissioner acted, and after the commissioner acted, he wanted to reach out to the minister in order to give him a report and the minister did not make time available.
That's
for
what the
that.
National Commission told me.
Okay, well, we'll probe that tomorrow.
Yeah, that's why I
But
said,
your own deduction then is that the reason why the minister did not respond favorably to the national commissioner is because of the interventions that were already being made by
comrade.
Mr. Brown Mohotsi
That's correct.
on the other side.
And not only Brown Mohoti, there's another businessman that was approached by the very same contract owner, Vusmus Matlala. I forgot his name, the fellow, Asian fellow in Northern Cape, in Northwest, one of the businessmen, who was also approached and say, hey, the minister is intending to do A to Z. And that one said, no, the minister is not going to do that. We'll try and talk to the minister about it. So the minister will have been approached most likely by more than one person to say to him, the decision you've taken there has got these implications. Maybe don't go ahead with it. But it was too late. Okay. Because the minister could not have reversed the investigation that was already conducted by internal audit.
Just coming to I mean, you may not be able to deal with some of the issues on what I'm going to ask because of the sensitivity attached to it. Earlier on, somebody here made reference to the KZN unrest. And now the question I want to pose is that, in your opinion, do you think that the occurrence of that unrest and the way in which it appeared to have been coordinated in a highly sophisticated way would have been prohibited if the security forces, especially at the crime intelligence level, were marching in unison in terms of dealing with that issue? Or it was just as overwhelming as it was, that there was no possibility, never mind what was the state of our crime intelligence, to deal with that situation? Like I'm saying, you will decide some of the issues you may have dealt with them in the JSC, I mean the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, but you will decide whether you can, to what extent you can deal with the question that I'm raising.
If I were to talk about the issues of the unrest, I spoke about the Human Rights Commission.
Yeah.
I must say upfront, in that Human Rights Commission, the Speaker of this Parliament was a Minister of Defense at the time, said bad things about me in that Human Rights Commission.
The former Speaker of Parliament, yes.
Yeah, the former Speaker, who's now is at X. She's no longer in Parliament. Mm. She said bad things when she appeared before the Human Rights Commission. And she said what she said. I picked up the phone, I phoned Gerald Glenn. And I asked Gerald Glenn, I said, Minister, you were in that meeting. This Minister of Defense says when they arrived in KZN, a group of ministers, I started addressing them about things that have got nothing to do with the state of security that existed at the province at the time, but I addressed them on things that were necessary. You can go on YouTube and replay that when she appeared before the Human Rights Commission. After learning that, I phoned Gerald Gale and asked Gerald Gale, do you want me to go to this Human Rights Commission and tell the South Africans about the close meeting that I had with you? What did we discuss? And Gerald Gale pleaded that I shouldn't do that. It was difficult. I didn't do that. But that stayed with me. That I deliberately left an operation. And I went to entertain my wife because she gave birth to a child during the thick of things. That was her words. And if I were to highlight on what transpired there, the riot started and the riot ended. The ministers had to come in a day before the president came to assess the damage done already. They flew into the province. They arrived in the province, they wanted to be briefed because they must be ready for their boss that is coming. So they were not part of the operation. Yes, they participated in a mop-up operation, not in the violence. The violence was long gone. When they landed, we briefed them about what has happened, past tense. And they stayed there, the president arrived, then they briefed the president, and from there I left. What she did not appreciate, even at the time, was that I got into the aeroplane after the riot. I flew to Pretoria My wife gives birth today. The following day, I took her out of the hospital with a newly born, and according to the vehicles, we drove 1,000 kilometers to transport her to her parents. And I left her there in a safe place, and I got on the airplane and I flew back to Durban because I cared about the safety of the citizens in the province. But we have the Minister of Defense who doesn't appreciate that, who says to me, I left the operation, I entertained my family issues. So I took an offense on that because it was bad. Close meeting that we are having. They arrive in the province, the premier is sitting there, Mr. Segalala, the Minister of Defense, State Security, Police, and other MECs. The first request to them was that, can we excuse the rest of the junior members? I want to address you as executive, and the generals of the army, and the head of State Security at the time. They agreed. Others left. We sat in that meeting. I wanted to vent my frustration as a member of the security cluster in government, as a general in the police. The fortunate part that has happened to me is that I've been working in units that works very close to the military. So I've got colleagues in the army that talks to me from time to time. We exchange training. I know the challenges they're experiencing on a daily basis. When I address those seniors on the day, the first thing I started with, say that I was political or otherwise, but I had to shoot straight. Then I said, all of you sitting here, I believe you are coming from the same political party. Your interest must be aligned, all of you. This interest is safety of this country. But what we have allowed to happen with the security cluster is not fair. It's what brings us here today. And I started in examples, and I started with each one of them. I said, Premier, you did A to Z. And that's not right. Minister of Defense, you go to the national TV, you say there's X number of soldiers deployed in KZN, and you're lying. The colonel in charge of the province in KZN has got 150 soldiers. The 150 soldiers don't have vehicles to get out of the base. And those few vehicles that are there don't have diesel because there's no contract on diesel in the military. And those diesel that are being sponsored by private sector to get into those vehicles, the soldiers can't get out of the base because they've got no place to sleep in Durban. They don't have a place to sleep because they've got no tents. The tents are old. The military have not bought them tents. Why those things are happening is because there's no budget allocated to the military. Then you have a minister that wanted me to disclose that at the Human Rights Commission. And I said it in a closed meeting. But she went out there and make it look me as a bad person. I'm saying it now, what transpired in that meeting, closed meeting. If all of them are there, they will tell you. Some of the things I addressed in that meeting, coming back to your question, was that I had asked the premier, I've asked the minister. I said, declare the state of emergency here now, not tomorrow. And the state of emergency must shut down social media communication. Had we done that at the time, we're not going to have the destruction that we had. Because honestly speaking to honorable members, the public was angry about the arrest of the president. It was not a planned thing. I hear analysts and everyone else and the reports that came out that says it was well coordinated. That is wrong. It was individuals that saw what the court has done, the ruling they came up with, and they were upset. And they felt it cannot be that the president is going to be treated like this. So they were spontaneous in their response. They are members of the African National Congress that were there in the homestead, trying to control the crowd themselves. I arrived at one stage, I had to tell some of them. I think there's a Reverend Dube amongst the people who were there, trying to assist the police. And I said to him, Reverend, don't stop these people, they're angry. Just leave them. Let them go and gather there and vent. If they are not, you're going to have problems. They're angry. Let them vent. They are not disturbing anyone here except violating the COVID rules without wearing a mask. Other than that, they're not violating anyone. Don't provoke them. So it was what we were seeing that had happened was the people that were angry that started in the morning by blocking the road at John Ross, Richards Bay. The blockage happens, it gets taken on the social media, it gets sent all over, and people see what has happened in Richards Bay because people are angry, they block the trucks. Yeah, here at Showe, let's do the same thing. Here's a truck here with sand. Stop this truck, offload this sand on the road. Create distraction. Social media and say, oh, now they are doing it in John Ross in Pangeni, they're doing it at Showe. That's also at Mkomazi, ban this truck that is driving on the road. They ban the truck. And then because of the social media communication, then we have the president's daughter who says, oh, so and so, we see you in that area. We see you in that, and then somehow people get fuel then from there. But how it started was just anger that started. And when then started fueling, then we started having communication on WhatsApp. They start saying, this is how you make a petrol bomb. And let's come together. Let's go and break in that place. Let's go and break in that place. And people start mobilizing people to go and steal polonies and cheese. And that's why it became a mayhem. It started slow like that. And then we had the Ngizwe who decided, let me go and encourage the Gauteng people to join in. It's not something that was originally planned. It's something that evolved as it happened because of the anger from people. Could the police have done something, or the security class have done something to prevent it? I say yes, if there was a decision, a willingness from the executive authority to shut down the social media, because they were using that to mobilize. They were using that to spread the message. I said the former boss of SABC is not necessarily my favorite person, but it's something that is profound, he once said at one stage, that do not publish this violence that is happening here, because you are encouraging other people to learn from this, and they also do it at the same time. Might not be a wrong thing to do, but this transparency, sometimes encouraging lawlessness to multiply. That social media that captured the wrong that happened during the riot, when it started, encouraged more wrong to happen on the day. And then we end up blaming law enforcement. Yes, we should have shut down social media. That means they will not have communicated on WhatsApp. They will not have mobilized each other easy. And when they were calling, we were going to be able to listen to them. We had gadgets that were kept in the storeroom because one of the 5 ministers who were supposed to sign and give us a permission to use it did not want to sign. As a result, we couldn't listen to the phones. And yet we had equipment that we had bought and was sitting at crime intelligence offices not being used. So those are some of the challenges we're experiencing then. So what I'm trying to explain there is that security class as a whole has been weakened over time. And the one that has been weakened the most of them all is military. And it pains me because if everything failed from the South African Police Service, those are the big brothers who must go to. If we can't go to them because we are better off than them, then there's a problem in the country, because that means the country is not safe. So I'm not a soldier. I'm not motivating for money to go to the military that much, but I can tell you, for my own safety, for the safety of this country, if we're not taking the security serious, military being the first point of departure, then intelligence and the police, we're not going to have a country at all.
General, I don't know to what extent are you familiar with the 2 reports, and I don't want you to discuss in detail the recommendation, but just the general threats of what they intended to achieve. That's the report of the Mkwanazi panel, as well as the report of Professor Africa. The Mkwanazi one was in around 2018, 2019, and the one of Prof Africa, I think it will be 2 years later than that. Now, the 2 reports, not exactly the same, but made proposals or recommendations in terms of what needs to be done to revamp the intelligence of our country, if I remember very well. Now, would you say that the activities that are carried out, or the work that is being done by Khumalo, General, I mean, I think it's Major General Khumalo, Lieutenant General
Lieutenant
Khumalo.
General.
Yes, the one who's in crime intelligence. Would you say that that is a part of implementing those recommendations? The work that is doing, which I think you have been speaking very fond of, is it consistent with what was recommended there? Is it a deviation? What's your interpretation of his interventions as the head of that division in relation to the 2 reports I referred to?
Honorable members, I don't work at crime intelligence. I might have had a glance of the report, not necessarily paying much attention on it. What has been done within the crime intelligence, the reforms that Jarokoma has been implementing, whether they are in line with the report or not, I'm not able to respond on it. I'm not an accounting officer that would be privy to the performance and the target performance of crime intelligence. That brings about that. I guess the National Commission might be in a better position to respond to that. I, however, know that some of the issues that were raised as we are engaging as the police management through the POC are being discussed, that were discussed at the Africa report and many other reports thereafter. They have been discussed within the POC in as far as us getting a proactive intelligence that help us to prevent things from happening. But having said that, honorable members, it does not necessarily take away the fact that intelligence were continuously giving notices and warning about certain things. It might not be precise as to who's going to do what, but the atmosphere in the countries get to be observed by intelligence, and they present through the intelligence estimate the risk that the country is facing. And when the reports are presented and they are not being taken seriously, or recommendations thereof from intelligence are not implemented, we then end up with a disaster like the one we had. There's other disasters that are coming. When you look at the level of unemployment, especially on the youth in this country, the way it's escalating, it's a disaster in waiting. So when the pipe bursts, we might come back and say we have no intelligence, and yet there's warnings that are coming. So it becomes a question then of then saying there was no intelligence when 2021 happened. What else we should have received differently? With respect to some of the commissioners get appointed to lead these inquiries, they are not subject matter experts. They are academians. They think on the academic side of things. But if you bring an engineer to come and tell you how to stop water from coming into this house, they will come up with a different solution than an expert that will come and talk without knowing how to mix the cement and sand to protect the water from coming in. So it's that sometimes that we find lacking on reports. There will be good recommendation from Falam, from everyone else, that says that you should have done, that you should have done, but the reality is the problem that existed is not necessarily been attended to. The 2021 problem, warning was there. Everyone foresaw what was coming. You cannot be that when the tsunami happens in the middle of the ocean because there's an earthquake that took place, you now have to figure out how you're going to stop the water from reaching shore and causing damage. You then blame the engineers that build those hotels next to the water, that they should have foreseen that when the tsunami comes, it's going to do this. They didn't foresee the extent of the tsunami that's coming. When it becomes so worse and severe, it's going to cause destruction either way, no matter how much plans you put in place. So similar to our intelligence, there will always be gaps, and the gaps are caused by the implementers of recommendations. And yet there are some instances where you could say we should have received specific intelligence about this plan, and we did not. I agree, I take that. But part of it is that, which I'm briefed by intelligence, is that it was a decision taken by this government, well, not this government, the previous government, in a dawn of democracy, that we shall not infiltrate political parties. We are not a security branch, so therefore we won't deploy to the political parties and infiltrate. Now, when you have an event of 2021 being planned and executed within a political party, then we ask intelligence as to who is doing it, and they say, we don't know, because you're not supposed to tap these people's phones. They're going to say it's a political thing, because it's a decision that was taken back then. Yes, it has an impact. Is that in the recommendation in the report? It's not there. But I know about it, and it's a problem that must be addressed. It can't be there because there's a political party and you think there's no crime that is planned there. You're supposed to be operating in that space. But I was told by the head of intelligence in my province that they're not allowed to go there.
Now, General, on your recommendation, the the one, the last, very last paragraph, 65.5. I just want to draw your attention to section 12 of the SARS Act, and I'm quite certain that you are very familiar with that. Particularly the first sentence, and I won't even read it in its entirety, where it says a provincial commissioner shall have command and control. What do you understand about that authority of the provincial commissioner in relation to what you have identified as weaknesses and or deficiencies occasioned by the fact that the structure of the police is centralized? And I want to give you maybe one or two other examples as you answer so that you can make us understand why in this case it won't work, while in other instances, almost a similar kind of a relationship exists, but it works. Like you may not be familiar with this, but if you look at the Department of Education as an example, you've got a Minister of Basic Education at the national level who has the responsibility for certain tasks together with the DG and the entire team at national level. Then in each of the provinces, you've got the MECs with their HODs, fully fledged department. They too exercise a certain authority within the confines of the law and the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. Now, in the context of your own work in the police service, and given what you are proposing about this idea of a decentralization, what do you think is a major issue, taking into account that there is this provision that says the provincial commissioner shall have, not may have, shall have command and control? What is meant by that in practical terms?
The application of what is envisaged in the Act, that is not happening.
It's not happening.
No.
Okay.
The practical application of how we operate as a police is not what you read in the Act. Why I say this? The National Commission remains the boss in the organization. By means of delegation, the National Commissioner delegates certain things that you can do as a provincial commission, things you cannot do. I said here yesterday, I cannot appoint, recommend, or approve even a panel that must sit and make recommendation on the appointment of a person with the rank of a brigadier and higher. I'm not allowed to do that. However, a lieutenant general in the head office has got that delegation to approve the panel. So I must write to a lieutenant general at the head office who approves the panel for me and give it back to me so I can start the process. I'm not allowed to advertise the vacancy as a province. On my own, I might say I need this expert in this field, so therefore I want to advertise the post. I can't do that. I must write to the head of HR, head office, and request the permission for that to happen, because the National Commission has delegated things in that fashion. That's a practical things that are happening in the organization. You will have a workforce of 20,000 employees with a total budget of maybe 2 billion or 3 billion rand. You're supposed to be exercising command and control over the province and work within the budget. But the reality is, the big percentage, 80% of that budget, is for compensation. You have no say on it as a provincial commission. You are only responsible for the running cost of the province. That 25% or less than on that percentage that you are giving. If it's 80, then you're left to 20. When that money is finished, you're then on an overdraft, you're on a negative, and the head office starts switching off certain score codes that you cannot pay this, you cannot pay that, and then you're doomed. When you have a workforce of 20,000 with a budget of those billions of rand to pay their salaries, and you have an X number of employees leaving the service through retirement, resignation, and whatever, and you wish that you can recruit more to replace, you're not allowed to do that. Because as they leave, that is not your budget. As they leave, you go back to the head office and you plead with the National Commissioner to advertise these vacancies that have been created. The National Commissioner decides, your province is not a priority. A province X is a priority. Let alone the fact that you had people occupying those positions and there's budget that was allocated to those individuals. But when they are gone, that money is gone. Those typical, so we are coming from 25,000 workforce in KZN. We are now sitting at 19,000 while the population is growing. I'm talking about KZN alone. So those are some of the examples that I'm giving here, honorable members, that the act, the legislature envisages that the provincial commission will have these powers, but in reality on the ground, it does not have. What makes it worse on that is that the act is written like that, but the regulation of the very same act says something differently. It recognizes a deputy national commissioner senior than the provincial commissioner. It recognizes a divisional commissioner senior than the provincial commissioner. In the regulation, it's written like that. Attend any function, I want to invite to attend any police function, and you listen to the minister of national commissioner acknowledging the attendance on the list. Acknowledge a deputy national commissioner, divisional commissioner, provincial commissioner, and others. That's how they address, because that's what the regulation says. Deputy is important, divisional commissioner is important, and the last person in line is a provincial commissioner, contrary to what the act is saying. So Mkwanazi is a provincial commissioner, can't change that. If the national commission doesn't see the need of changing it, maybe the legislation might need to help us to ask questions as to why we are practicing something that's not written in the legislation.
But is the regulation which we are talking about, because it would seem to me that it's a violation of the act. Is it an internal mechanism within the institution, or is something that had to do with Parliament before its approval?
In terms of the legislation development, the minister gets given powers by the act to develop regulations.
Okay.
So if those regulations are not in line with the act, unfortunately, the citizen doesn't have to input much on it. They just get gazetted like that and implemented.
Okay.
So in this case, the regulations were amended that are no longer the same as what the act has been. That brings about some of these challenges that we're experiencing that might need to be relooked at.
Okay, thank you very much, General. I'm done, Chair. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Chief Whip, are you done?
Yes, indeed. I'm 100% done.
Thank you so much.
Nothing. Sure, I would do honestly.